What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the Fantasy Fellow Show. Today is August 24th. It's Tuesday. It's a little after 6 p.m. Central Time. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday evening. We're going to be covering some fantasy news and some training camp updates here for you guys. We got some massive news today. Last night in the Jacksonville Jaguars and New Orleans Saints game, we saw a couple things happen. One, the injury to Travis Etienne. It did not come back good today. They just put him on IR. Let me hop into a screen share here so we can kind of read you guys the updates, and then I'm going to open up the box score from last night's game. But the main news here today, if you guys saw, Travis Etienne, rookie running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're one of their first-round picks. He is out for the season with a Lisfranc injury. So here's the report. By sending Etienne to the IR now, the Jaguars are making him ineligible to return this season. So it's not even a possibility if he can make a recovery. From what I've seen, there's a huge range of spectrums with this, but it sounds like we're not going to see him at all till maybe next year's training camp. So it is the worst possible news after Etienne went down on Monday evenings. It further clouds Etienne's future upside as the Jags spent their summer treating him like a pure pass catching back. So Etienne is still 5 months shy of his 23rd birthday. So the good news is he's still young. He's still got a lot of opportunity ahead of him. But I have to say the precedents with the Lisfranc injury are not that great. One of the friends of the show, Aiden, mentioned that Maurice Jones-Drew was one of these players that had a Lisfranc injury and just was never quite the same. I think Darren McFadden was as well. So with Travis Etienne, we'll see. But this is going to be a tough road to recovery. It hurts, man. Cam Akers, we lost him earlier in the season, and now Travis Etienne. I think people were drafting Etienne probably a little too high. I know I took him in a mock draft recently, I think in the 6th round, and that's kind of where I started to get into him. But this is all about James Robinson. Let me go ahead and pull up my my projection document here for you guys. But I think Etienne probably would have been like a RB 30, a top 36 running back, a really good flex play in PPR leagues. But I just don't think he would have been consistent enough for us in fantasy. And I had been recommending to take James Robinson. I thought he would lead the team in touches. But we're pulling up the projections document here. I just want to show you guys when I plugged in the numbers, James Robinson comes in hot. It's RB number 14. He's right in the same tier of J.K. Dobbins, Montgomery, Chris Carson, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift. So he's a 3rd round running back at his peak. And if you can get him in the 4th round, if you that's kind of fair value. If you can get him in the 5th round, that's where the value begins to look really good. So I have James Robinson as a running back too. We got James Robinson and Carlos Hyde. Keep in mind, Carlos Hyde played in Ohio State with Urban Meyer, so there is a little bit of familiarity between those two guys. But between the two, I have about 312 carries with James Robinson getting about 60-some% of those, 219 carries, 975 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then he's going to be the leading receiving back there. I got him at 53 catches, a little over 60 targets, and almost 400 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns there. So I can maybe move the touchdowns down a little bit. Say I just bounced one of those receiving touchdowns over here to we'll say we'll throw it to LaVisca. Let's just see what his numbers come down at, because the 3rd round tier of running backs, it's pretty tight, but James Robinson still stays around 14. So I think if you can get him in the 3rd round, if you don't like the receivers in that range, or if you already drafted, receivers early and need a running back, James Robinson can be a part of your plan as a top 20 running back this year. So again, it's unfortunate for Travis Etienne, but it does make things a little bit clearer for fantasy. So hopefully if you have not drafted yet, James Robinson can be yours, and you'll have to check the ADPs. And I'm willing to take him, I guess, when I go to my flex tab here, he comes in as, here, let me filter this. He comes in as my 36th best player, which is basically the last pick in the 3rd round. So again, that's ideally the 4th round is probably where you can get him at decent value. So, but yeah, that was the toughest news of the day. There was some other news here with running backs. Darrell Henderson, who we heard had a thumb injury the other day. He took part in 11-on-11s with a non-contact jersey. It sounds like this is just a mildly sprained situation. I don't think this is going to be something that's going to keep him off the field for week 1. So we'll monitor it. But so far, I'm not overly concerned. Let me just take a peek at some of the other headlines here. The hamstring for Lynn Bowden puts him on injured reserve. I don't know if that ends his season. Let me read this real quick. But this wasn't a player that we needed for fantasy, but it makes more availability for snaps and targets for the rest of the receivers in Miami. So maybe Jalen Waddle, that gets him a little bit more playing time on the field, not getting Lynn Bowden kind of into that slot situation. Julio Jones takes part in individual drills today. Let me see what else we got here. Adam Troutman. Last night's game was interesting because Troutman was the first one to get injured, and then we'll get to Marquez Callaway in a bit, but then Etienne went down. So here's the thing on Adam Troutman. It says leg. He avoided serious injury. So per Underhill, who is New Orleans.football's one of their better reporters there, he says Troutman is going to see a specialist to get an exact timeline, but initial belief is that it is a minor injury. It's a huge sigh of relief for Troutman, who was carted off against the Jaguars last night. Now fantasy managers can focus on their initial Monday evening concern, Troutman's elevated usage as a blocker. It is also worth noting that even a minor injury has Troutman in danger of missing week 1, with the opener less than 3 weeks away. Troutman is a high variance tight end 2 here at the height of the redraft season. So I'm just going to say I'm probably not interested in drafting Adam Troutman this year. I think there's other tight end number 2s with some higher upside here. He's probably going to be maybe the 4th or 5th pecking order, and he had been used primarily as a blocker through the preseason game. So I didn't really like the Troutman buzz to begin with. So I think we can just kind of cross him off the list. But while we're here, I did want to pull up that New Orleans box score last night, and let's just take a peek at this. Because when we were doing the live stream last night, Marquez Callaway, who's been one of the favorite sleepers of mine the last few weeks, he popped off. And he comes in with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, first of all, goes 9 of 10, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns, just like perfect, pretty much. And then Marquez Callaway, 5 catches, 104, and 2 touchdowns. That's all from Jameis Winston, too. So it pretty much seems like Jameis Winston has this job sewed up. I have Winston kind of as, like a low-end quarterback, too. I think he's going to be difficult to trust. Again, I don't really know how much we can learn from just this game. I know the Saints and the Jaguars, a little bit different competition. And Jameis Winston just comes out and just gashes them. And then also no Alvin Kamara in this one. So we got to see what this offense looks like with everybody on the field. But Marquez Callaway, all of a sudden, he is looking like he is the number 1 receiver. As long as Michael Thomas is away, Marquez Callaway is going to be the guy, probably getting the most targets from Jameis Winston. So whether that's, 7, 8, 9, 10 targets per game, maybe Callaway picks up 5 or 6 catches per game. I don't think he's going to be getting all these, these deep looks. I think there's going to be a lot more shorter things underneath that he'll get as well here. But he's looking like a really safe PPR high floor wide receiver 3. Definitely someone that you can probably draft on your bench, whether you take him in the 10th round. I think 11th and 12th round are going to be gambling to get Marquez Callaway. So if you want him, you want to get a piece of him, probably got to think about it in the 10th round, or at least gauge, in the 10th round, you kind of look around and see, who's all available still here and kind of make your best assumption. But Marquez Callaway, definitely got on the rise. The other thing to note here, Taysom Hill, 11 of 20, 138 and a touchdown. He didn't rush the ball at all. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the other running backs here, Tony Jones Jr., apparently he's got some sleeper potential as the running back number 2. It sounds like Latavius Murray just is not being very impressive in camp right now. And Tony Jones Jr. has been the best back there through 2 preseason games. So this is a guy, I'm not saying to draft Tony Jones Jr., but if Latavius Murray gets cut, Tony Jones Jr., man, he's going to be just a name to file away the back of your mind. Anything happens to Kamara, maybe Tony Jones Jr. gets worked in a little bit, maybe 5, 6, 7 touches per game kind of thing. Just keep an eye on this name here, Tony Jones Jr. And then really nothing else stuck out here. There was an interesting tight end development here. Juwan Johnson, who used to play wide receiver, he's a really slim wide receiver. He's really slim tight end. He's basically like a Darren Waller hybrid tight end receiver. He's going to be the guy. If Troutman misses time, Juwan Johnson was actually the leading, he was the pass catching tight end in this offense last night. He was the one catching passes from Jameis Winston and getting targets from Jameis Winston. So Juwan Johnson, another name to file away here once we get more news on the injury for Troutman, how long he's going to be out. On the Jaguar side, Trevor Lawrence, it was a little bit rough go. I think the first 2 or 3 drives were 3 and outs, but he settled in okay, 14 of 23, 113 yards, a low average completion, and then he was sacked once. He did manage, he was able to get a field goal on the board, so it's not like a total defeat here for the Jaguars, but I took note of who he was throwing the ball to. Marvin Jones, 4 for 41 and 5 targets. Laviska Shenault, 5 for 36 and 7 targets. So 12 of his targets go to Shenault and Marvin Jones. That's almost about half of his targets. So I'm really liking this, especially with Travis Etienne out of the fold now. Laviska Shenault, man, we know he's got some running back, like genes in his body. He's a really good bruising, physical player. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down and run through you. And it seems like he could be a guy that gets a couple carries every now and then in a game. We'll see. Travis Etienne again was going to be used as more of a short area, a quick receiver for them. So maybe Shenault gets those plays. I'm interested in it, and I think with my current projections. Let me see, because when I updated the numbers today, I kind of had to update the entire Jacksonville team because with ETN out, that's a lot of targets and other things moving here. So a lot of moving pieces. But we do see Laviska Shenault comes in right around Chase Claypool for me. I have him down here at, let's see, let me filter this. He is my wide receiver 28. So I think he's a top 30 wide receiver. I got to look and see why I got DJ Moore so low. I think that might be an error. But anyways, Laviska Shenault, that's probably the one guy that sticks out to me. And again, James Robinson, definitely one you want to target. But interesting game last night. Just massive implications for fantasy football in this one. So we'll move on from that one, though. We're going on about 11 minutes. We'll hang out just a few more minutes. I'll read some more headlines for you. Stephon Diggs is back from, in team drills with his little knee injury that he had. Will Fuller, lower body. He resumes running routes. And then Elijah Moore, rookie for the Jets, is back at practice. Bucks kicker Ryan Suckup lands on the COVID list. And some good news for the day. Finally, some good news. Robbie Anderson inks a 2-year deal with Carolina. So he gets paid. I think Robbie Anderson's probably the Carolina receiver to own. So for me, a lot of when I'm thinking about drafting a player from a team, I look at how high these players are going. So Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore. DJ Moore probably goes in the 4th round. I can get Robbie Anderson in the 6th. And I just think that connection with Sam Darnold, he just got paid. There's a lot of positivity there for Robbie Anderson. So I'm kind of leaning towards him being the guy to target there in Carolina. So let me see what else I can find here. I thought there was a couple. This is the 4th or 5th receiver for Buffalo, Isaiah McKenzie, an MRI on his shoulder. I'll watch that one closely because he was a good player last year. I think he caught 5 or 6 touchdowns. Really productive player. Yeah, last year, 30 catches, 282 yards, and 5 TDs. So maybe more on the plate for Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Sanders, Cole Beasley, that kind of stuff. So let's keep it moving. Kahale Warring, just another tight end for the New England Patriots. The Dolphins had to make some cuts today. Isaiah Ford. There's the Travis Etienne news. Let me see what else we got here. And then there's Julio Jones returning to practice. Nico Collins, exciting rookie for the Houston Texans. He's returning to practice with a muscle pull. More Etienne, more Stephon Diggs. Luke Wilson back with Seattle. That's cool to see. And then, I'm excited about Elijah Moore. I think with the Jets, though, you're going to want Corey Davis. I just did a little bit of a rankings update. I got Corey Davis up here at wide receiver 31. I might even prefer Corey Davis over guys like DJ Moore, Laviska Shenault, just because it seems to be like he's the clear dude there. Like he's got almost no competition for targets right now. Maybe Elijah can eat into that now that he's healthy, but we'll see. And then I guess here's another big one. A lot of running back news today, but Lions coach Dan Campbell says he's concerned about running back DeAndre Swift's availability for week 1 against the 49ers. Swift has missed a lot of time this month while nursing a lingering groin issue. Campbell on Monday questioned whether Swift will be in game shape for week 1. We don't know if he's going to be there. We don't know, even if he is, how much we're going to get out of him. So Detroit coaches have said for months that Swift and Jamal Williams would be a 1-2 punch, with Swift absorbing most of all of the passing catching, from the check down king Jared Goff. Campbell has said he hopes Swift and Williams can operate like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram back in New Orleans. That's a tough sell for an offense that will face plenty of negative game scripts in 2021. But this is interesting. You got the head coach already questioning Swift's availability and his conditioning right now. I'm probably just going to say no to DeAndre Swift in a lot of my drafts because where he's going is probably a 3rd round pick. Again, if I go to my PPR flex rankings here, I don't see DeAndre Swift until my 54th best player available. So if I can get DeAndre Swift in the 5th round, I'd probably do it. But otherwise, I'm taking a lot of these higher upside receivers, in that 3rd, 4th round. So for me, I'm probably going to pass on him. If you wanted to make kind of a dirty pick, you could take Jamal Williams and just leave him on your bench. Again, a lingering groin issue is not good entering the season. I always like to say a player especially a player is the healthiest he's going to be at the start of the season. You generally don't really get healthier. If you do it, I mean, you can return a little bit, but for a running back, you want to be 100% to start the year. So DeAndre Swift makes me a little bit nervous there. I'm probably swerving on him in the 3rd round. Carson Wentz, good to see him back. It looks like the videos that I saw, he looked normal. So I think Carson Wentz is on track here. That's what this report is. And then Quentin Nelson too. So all that, Jonathan Taylor, Colts scare news a couple of weeks ago was looking pretty silly. It looks like everything's just fine there in Indianapolis. So Cole Beasley and Gabe Davis both on the COVID list here. They got to stay away for 5 days. And this is probably the last news blurb of the day, but Justin Fields going to get the start in the final preseason game, which means Andy Dalton is confirmed QB1 for Week 1 against the Rams. So I know that's disappointing, but hey, Nagy said this from the beginning. He said Andy Dalton was going to be his starter. It doesn't bother me. I mean, if you're the Chicago Bears, you think you have a playoff squad this year. You got to see what Andy Dalton can do. As long as Justin Fields is healthy and he continues to learn, that's what he's going to do anyways, even if he's starting or not. So at some point, we're going to see Justin Fields. We just got to be patient. He remains a really good option to put on your bench if you're in a redraft team or a league that already drafted and Fields is available. You really can't find a more higher upside player sitting in the waiver wire than Justin Fields. But go pick up Marquez Callaway too. See if he's out there. He probably already got snagged up. But I don't know. That's going to do it for today's video. Falcons signed Josh Rosen. I guess that's the last news of the day. But this was fun. I think tonight is Tuesday. Tomorrow night, maybe we'll do another live mock draft tomorrow night. I'll try to schedule something there. We'll do another 12-team mock draft for you guys and get some more news and some information out there. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of your evening. Peace.